Hi, everyone. My name is Melody Ocasio, and I'm your host for Opt-in. Today, we have guest Veronica Shapira, and she's a second year at SEO. We're continuing on with our Day in the Life series, where we bring 4 students from an optometry school, and this one happens to be Southern College of Optometry. And she's just going to give us a little bit of the do's and don'ts of her second year in optometry school.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
So we just want to jump right in and basically compare your first year to your second year. We've already interviewed Natalie, and she told us a little bit of how to shift in from her undergrad to her first year. But then there's always that saying that your first and second year of optometry school, you're going to be your hardest. So we kind of want to give our listeners a little bit of the realities of what it's like to be in school. So in comparison to the first year, how did you prepare for your second year in optometry school?
I think I definitely passed on some of the study techniques that I created in my first year, even though I think even from class to class and semester to semester, I'm still changing things up depending on the course and how it's structured or how much material is going to be on the exam. So it really just depends. But I think in terms of like time management and study techniques are things that I transferred over. We did have the summer off between first and second year. So I did take that summer just to have the summer off. We had the opportunity to possibly do research fellowships and things like that, which some of my peers did take advantage of, but I am not super drawn to research or continuing that in the future. So I did take the summer off, and I don't think it hindered me in any way or anything, because while we're here, we're definitely giving our all to school 100%. So if you have a summer off in between first and second year, I think taking it off if you feel like you need it is definitely a good idea. And we actually came back into second year with a mini term. So we had a 6-week semester in July. And I mean, here it's kind of lovingly referred to as second year boot camp because mini term makes it sound cute, but we took less courses. So we had like 3 true lectures and a few labs, but we had exams every week and or quizzes. So it was continuously studying for something after the next. And that kind of made us grateful for the exam weeks that we have now. But it also showed us that, especially second year, you do have to stay on top of all of your material. There's no like cramming before midterms anymore for the most part, because there's just so much to stay on top of. And things are getting cumulative either in from first year or from that summer term. So it's really just a continuous flow of studying and kind of building up on one another.
Okay. And then in terms of the study habits that you said you maybe carried over, tweak some, what are those type of, study habits that you've taken with you throughout like your optometry career so far?
I have been a fan of Anki and even, I mean, Quizlets here and there, but Anki, just because of the program, kind of forcing you to stay on top of reviewing the flashcards, building up on top of one another, and it lets you review the things that like you might have missed in the past. So the program, I think, facilitates studying long term and staying on top of things. So I know a lot of medical students recommend it. So I didn't really use it during undergrad, but I do find that here Anki has been really beneficial. And I think just like I used to like read my notes or take notes, but now I've realized that certain classes, it's like I rely on our note takers, or I just have my annotated PowerPoints and then I just move on to making flashcards. Like there's no time to rewrite notes and things like that. So it really just, it does depend on the class. Like pharmacology, it's a lot of flashcards because it's a lot of like repetitive facts versus theory and methods. It might be more kind of theoretical and not a lot of concrete facts. So that one I do review more in terms of like the whole lecture and not just point by point. So I think adjusting to those things has been the way to increase my efficiency in studying. And that's another thing. It's just studying. I think we've all learned it's not enough that you're just looking at material and spending time on it. It is really actually being efficient with your time, because you could stare at information and not absorb any of it. And then you've wasted like precious hours of your time because we don't have a lot of it nowadays. So I think that efficiency and just working with, however it works for you, but being efficient with the time you have, I think is crucial.
And then I know you mentioned the note takers that they offer for certain courses. I know different programs offer different things to their students, but in our interview with Natalie, she mentioned the note takers. She kind of mentioned that like mentoring program where you have an older student come in and kind of like walk alongside you while you're in school. Do you take advantage of any of the other programs? Or are there any more that students should be aware of to look out for in one of their institutions?
I definitely take advantage of the note takers. First year, I didn't as much because I felt like I had more time to maybe take my own notes or be organizing my own notes. But now I find it's really beneficial to have that like second perspective, second set of eyes. Even if I do take my own notes for the class, I still have that note taker to in case I missed something in the lecture, and then I don't have to rewatch the whole thing, or just some of them make flashcards and things for it. So it's just kind of filling in the blanks of my own study techniques. I think it's really beneficial. I really enjoyed the like Big Sib program that we have because it was a really nice resource, especially first year, to have someone that has been literally walked in your shoes and has gone through everything to answer those questions and things like that. I was the first one in my family to go to a graduate school, so it's always nice to just have someone that I can ask all these even like silly financial aid questions or living questions, not necessarily like optometry school specific. So I think I really appreciated that we had that built-in kind of like Big Sib to help out. And besides that, I haven't taken advantage of a tutor, but I am a tutor, and I think that has helped me personally stay on top of material because this time next year we're going to have to start studying for part 1 of boards, and I've heard that it's like optics heavy, and I mean all of our classes are going to build up and we'll have to be tested on it once again. So staying on top of things just by tutoring it has I think benefited me so far, and I think will help me when I'm re-reviewing all of this material again for boards.
Okay, very good. And then in terms of how your schedule compares to last year, are you taking the same amount of credits, less because you had that mini boot camp, or how does it look in comparison to last year?
I think credit wise, I think we're taking a similar amount of credits. I know last year fall we had 23, and I think spring was 24. I want to say now we're taking around the same amount, but we are taking more classes. So we have 7 lectures now, so 7 exams within a midterm week, and 5 labs, I believe. So each course is like weighted less, so the overall amount of credits isn't too much higher, but just the fact that there's so many more courses to balance and labs to practice for and go outside of our times, I think makes it does make it feel like it is more, even if like the total amount of credits is pretty similar to last year. But I think it's just the time spent outside of class for this semester has definitely built up.
And in terms of the labs, do they correlate to a course you have in lecture like undergrad, or is it like a completely different course?
They do correlate.
Okay.
So I know in undergrad, I went to UF, the University of Florida, and our labs correlated to our lectures, but they were a separate grade and a separate like course grade on your transcript. Here, they correlate, and they're also integrated into our grade for that course. So this year we have a lab for our optometric theory and methods course. And first year we learned a lot of our like chair skills, our whole refractive sequence. And now we're getting back into the back of the eye. So we're doing BIO, fundoscopy and things like that with a slit lamp. So that's where we're learning all of those skills. And then we have an ophthalmic optics lab, which deals a lot with glasses and picking out frames and lenses for patients and like different materials and what benefits who versus and bifocals, progressives, everything that goes into the glasses aspect of it. We do, and then we also have binocular vision lab, which deals with binocular vision, how the eyes work together, how misalignment of the eyes or different images between the eyes affects how someone functions in their world. And we also have pediatric lab. So we learn how to do a full eye exam on an infant, toddler, all the age ranges of kids, because you have to adjust depending on the abilities. And our last lab isn't exactly a lab in the sense that we don't like do assignments, but we do observe in clinic. So we have a rotation, we go through the different specialties within our clinic. So that's a really great opportunity because I know second years last year didn't have that opportunity because of COVID restrictions. So I'm glad we do have that now. And we also go into schools and we do school screenings during that day too.
Oh, cool. So on your busiest day, because I know different days, maybe you have more classes, more labs, what's an average busy day look like for you in terms of class, lab, study time, any downtime, something like that?
Yeah, so most days we're at school at 8:30 is our lab start time. We have, most of our labs are 2 hours or 2-hour blocks. And then so like for me, I have theory and methods. Theory methods is always twice a week. So I have it Tuesday, Friday. And then I have pediatric lab along with it on Tuesdays and ophthalmic lab along with it on Fridays. So we basically have 2 labs back to back from 8:30 to 12:30. And then we have a little bit of a break for lunch. And then we have lectures in the afternoons, which is flipped from first year. We had lectures in the morning last year. But this year we have lectures in the afternoons, and it's usually 3 lectures this year. Some days it's 2, but usually most days of the week it's 3. And then so we're in lecture from 1:30 to about 5 o'clock, just depending on the day. And then I usually take a break, whether it's going home and cooking dinner or going on a bike ride. But then I usually spend another maybe 2 hours, 3 hours just reviewing things, making flashcards for the day, just to stay on top of things, because even though it's like 1 days of lecture and it's just 2 lecture
It'll add up at the end of the week, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then what's your favorite course so far this year?
This year, I think probably pharmacology. Even though it's a lot of material because we had it during the summer term and now to the fall, and we're just building on all of the drugs that we're learning. I think we're up to like 500 drugs we have to have memorized. But coming back from my biochemistry background, I think it's just like, I just like the chemical aspect of it and biochemistry and things like that. So I do appreciate learning about all the different pharmaceuticals and their effects on the body. So I do like pharmacology, and our professor is really great as well. So that always helps. So I think that's my favorite course, even though it is pretty tough.
And on at the end of the spectrum, what's been the most challenging course? And then how have you kind of like tried to balance that aspect of things in terms of studying and then using maybe like your note takers? Like, how are you combating the most challenging course?
I think most challenging is, pathology has been pretty tricky because on the other side of it, even though, and they've aligned it pretty well so that the drugs that we're learning in pharmacology align with the diseases we're learning in pathology a lot of the time. But disease processes and things like that do tend to add up, and there's just so much material. So I think that has been tricky just to stay on top of. And I think that's the biggest course that kind of forces me to stay on top of my notes and review my Anki cards and things like that before the exam so that I'm not cramming right beforehand. And then pediatrics has also actually been tricky this year. It's just because even though we've learned an entire exam sequence, it's just so different when you're dealing with a child who you can't get the same responses out of. And also, I didn't know going into this, but how much like development of optometrists also has to take into consideration. So we have to learn a lot of like the developmental milestones and things like that. So like what even to expect of a child of a certain age, because just because they're not seeing 20/20 doesn't mean that something's wrong. It just means that they just haven't developed yet because they are, 2 years old. So
Growing, exactly. And then in your spare time, do you partake in any clubs or believe any are more beneficial to start joining once you're in your second year?
I think clubs are a great way to both meet your peers and then also just get more involved in different aspects of optometry. Most of our organizations are catered towards the different specialties of optometry that you might see in like a residency. So I became really interested in contact lenses and specialty contacts while working as an optometric technician during undergrad. So I've joined the Contact Lens Society here. And we have different speakers. A lot of our faculty have gone through a contact lens residency. So they talk about that experience and expectations of that, and also just like different case studies and just kind of integrating that specialty more into our schedule versus just getting introduced to it like in third year or fourth year when we actually start seeing those patients, I think is a great just like introduction. And also just to see other specialties that you might not have considered, just to see if you might be interested in pursuing that as a residency, or even just to focus your practice on it in the future, I think would be beneficial. But we also have more kind of fun clubs. So we have intramural sports that have started again this year. So that's a lot of fun. We do have like a social organization, like a social fraternity, I guess it is, but they just organize different social events outside of school, just to kind of give everyone a opportunity to de-stress with our peers. So they had a little event for Halloween weekend because it happened to be the weekend after midterm. So it's a nice, because it's all organized through the school and we know everyone, it's just a nice opportunity to hang out with our peers in that sense as well. I'm also a student ambassador for the school. So it's like a voluntary position that we hold for all 4 years, but I appreciated the student ambassadors when I came to interview, and just how much like they were willing to answer questions and like lead you through the process. So I did become one myself, and I really appreciate being able to kind of share optometry. We have like a little conference with high schoolers and just telling them what optometry is, because I feel like optometry is overlooked when you're talking to like pre-health professions. Like no one really considering optometry unless you have a family member or like you've had experience with your eyes yourself. So that's just a cool way to like reach out into the community. I know a lot of my peers are also involved in like the student branches of the AOA or the AOSA, and that also gives them opportunity to start advocating for optometry in that sense as well.
And then in your future, like career plans, I know that you still have 2 more years and you have boards and all that to worry about, but do you want to specialize in contact lenses?
I think so. If I was imagining my career path now, I'm considering a residency. I'm not 100% set on it. I've heard both ways, that you could specialize without necessarily doing a residency, but then again, you have a lot more experience during that year than you might see in the future in terms of specialty contact lenses. So I'm considering it, but I think I would want to especially specialize in specialty contact lenses for patients who can't wear glasses, or for patients pre or post refractive surgeries and things like that. I think that would be the path that I would want to go into.
Okay. And in terms of just everything you've kind of absorbed in your second year and, just preparing for your third year and ultimately getting more involved with patient interaction, because I know it's more clinic settings once you're kind of out of your first 2 years of optometry school, how do you plan on preparing for that and ultimately getting ready for boards and things like that?
I think I'm definitely hoping to continue in terms of like continue reviewing, continue studying. We don't have another summer off, so it is really just going to be building up one semester on top of the next. But I think just continuously practicing our skills and staying on top of whether it's the flashcards or drugs, there's always something to review, even if it's just for a little bit a day, just to keep it fresh for when we do start seeing patients in clinic and have to recognize these diseases and these drugs that we've been learning. So I think I'm more convinced that I should stay on top of things and stay on top of school and just find a way to like enjoy it, even if it's, like I said, just for a little bit of it every day. And I know that third year, I've heard, is a lot even more time management because of how much time you spend in the clinic and you still have to not only study for your classes, but study for boards and take midterms while you're also worrying about the biggest exam of your career. So it's going to be a lot of time management, but I think I appreciate that we've had these steps to get us to that point. So I think hopefully the transition will be smooth and easy.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Veronica. We're so happy you could be here. And for everyone listening today, just because you are a listener listening to the Opt-in podcast, you guys do get a discount just for the OAT prep course. And the code is Opt-in, OPTIN. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.